Good morning, everyone. We'll reconvene an open session for our August 6th meeting. I'd like to begin with Commissioners' reports and comments. Vice President Baker, would you begin, sir?
Just a couple of thoughts. Last week we had I think we discussed the leases or the renewal of leases for our solar projects going on throughout the county. And I didn't know if it was possible, maybe staff could come in and provide an overview or give us an update as to how much money the county is actually receiving to be applied toward our electrical bills. I know at one time I thought over half of our energy costs for Washington County was supposed to be supplied by those solar projects. So I'd just like to know, what we're receiving from that in terms of dollars and so forth.
We can bring an update in probably as early as next week, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
I think you've had staff meeting with those type of reports already.
Yes, we have.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, I know we've been talking about water and sewer a lot here of late, and EDUs and so forth, and I'd like to know just an update on how the county collects those EDU costs or fees, and because I don't think any of them's to be waived, and because I notice there's a lot of development, a lot of grading and so forth going on all over the county, and I'd like to know how many EDUs are going to be absorbed by these projects, and how many of the EDUs have been paid for.
Okay. Well, each EDU should be paid for. I'm not aware of any that haven't, but if you have
In past
specific
history,
projects,
Williamsport had lots of them before 2000. So is that what you're talking about?
Well, that, and I'd like to know how much money is being generated and how much we've received and how much are we going to be collecting from these potential developments and growth going on throughout Washington County.
I can certainly provide a snapshot to you. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner?
I have just one quick update. This is 10 months early, but mark your calendars. Friday, June 5th, 2020 will be the Commission on Aging's first annual COA golf tournament. This will be likely their hallmark fundraiser. They do several smaller fundraisers throughout the year, but this will be their hallmark fundraiser. So it is 10 months early, but I think this will help the Commission on Aging bring in some needed revenue. Keep in mind the Commission on Aging, the Washington County Commission on Aging, isn't actually a county agency. It is a separate nonprofit. We are required to have a Commission on Aging, but this is in our county, and just 2 or 3 other counties, we do it a little differently than the rest of the state. So this is a great organization, helps a lot of great people. And June 5th, 2020. I am not a golfer, but I will likely be on the cleanup committee, so hope you guys can come, and I think we might have 1 or 2 golfers on our board here.
All right. Commissioner Schmidt?
No comments for today.
Commissioner Wagner?
It was an honor. We got to go out to, we were invited to go out to see the arrival of the Vice President, Mike Pence, at the airport. It was a nice function. We got to see up close and personal. Airport did a great job. Kudos to Garrison back there and his staff. Things went very smooth. So it was exciting, actually. And then Jeff and I were at a cultural exchange mentoring program at the Marty Snook Pool yesterday, run by Art Hicks. It's for youth who may not get the same opportunities as some youth, and they come out and they were given an hour or 2 of swim lessons and make them comfortable in the water. It was quite an experience. Court's parents help staff that. They're amazing. I mean, they're in their 70s. They're basically, still in the water, still giving instructions, shouting orders. It was pretty exciting, actually.
Randy, didn't they tell us?
Yeah, I don't want to diminish Court's commissioner authority here, but Cordy Poo or Cordy Pie. Yeah, Cordy Pie. That's what his mother calls it. So will you just you'll be all right.
It's the best pie there is.
Yeah. But anyway, it was a good experience. There was one young'un out there. His senior told me, Brittany come over and grabbed me and said he was interested in aviation, so I went over and talked to him. And I asked him about it, and he wanted to go to PIA out here to be A&I, and aircraft, and engine mechanic, and or a neurosurgeon. He said so. That was a big mix, but I heard he was pretty sharp. I have to give. Can't remember his name. Brittany might remember, but so I told him that I knew people and I could get him a tour at the airport anytime he wanted. I said, just call Garrison Plus. Anybody wants a tour at the airport, call Garrison. He'll give you a nice tour. So you had a tour yesterday, didn't you, with some people? Did you, Garrison? Did they show up? You remember? I can't remember. The youngin' that sat here and his mother that came in to see how the government works, I think they were scheduled for yesterday to take a tour. You might not have given them the tour. You remember who I mean? Yeah. So that went, so anyway, Garrison's, he'll drive you around a golf cart or something, I think, but I'm not sure. I think that's it for me. Yeah. Oh, great article on BlackRock, by the way. Whoever wrote that, Julie. Yeah, you wrote that article. That was a good article, Julie. You maybe help me out a little bit next time. So, it's a nice article. I think that's it. Oh, Connor Brown. This swimming thing intrigued me. Connor Brown, who is a lifeguard out the pool, and Grady Boy Sr. And Court's dad really took a liking to him. I think he's on swim team. But these kids couldn't swim very good. They make them do a swim test first, see if they can go deep water, shallow. So long story short, this boy could not swim. I'm telling you, he could not swim. Court's dad and Connor Brown had this kid doing a good strokes, crawl and backstroke within an hour. It was unbelievable in deep water. So anyway, I'm done.
Thank you for your update. I want to elaborate on that mentoring program. Mr. Hicks also had that group of youth down at the Ag Expo. I think they toured the 911 center, and I think they also did an airport tour. So Mr. Hicks, I think, is going to be in here in a week or two on our agenda with the kids to celebrate their accomplishments. So kudos to that group. I do want to bring up that tonight is National Night Out throughout our different communities. So if you have an opportunity, go venture out and meet our local law enforcement agency people and the kids and people from your community. I did attend on Saturday the Washington County Volunteer Fire Rescue Association memorial services. They had the Wall of Fallen Heroes. Mr. Slocum and I were there, and it was a very poignant and memorial occasion, because when they leave the station, some of them take the chance they may not come back. So that was a very nice event. And the event at the airport that whether it was a Republican or a Democrat vice president, we threw the red carpet out. So kudos to the staff out there welcoming our vice president to our community. With that being said, that closes my report. I'd like to go reports from counties.
It looks like, according to the picture, that Brian Albert and Vice President Pence, they must be on first name basis.
Looks like it does. Or soon to be.
Really good friends.
I was just in the front row.
All right. Reports from county staff. Please come forward.
Good morning, Commissioners. Susan Small, Director of Business Development. Today I'm requesting your consensus to move forward with a letter of support, which will be provided to the City of Hagerstown's Mayor and Council as part of a request for a waterline connection through exception number 6 for economic development project in the city's water and wastewater policy. The recently amended policy states for economic development projects, service approval using the exception is contingent upon recommendation for the county commissioners, the city and the county economic development directors, and the city director of utilities to and by approval by the mayor and council for a vital economic development project or an economic development project located in the target economic development area at the airport as delineated in the county's 2002 comprehensive plan. The project I'm referring to is a project with Utility Keystone, which will be operating a 30% trailer sales and 70% repair facility located at the Airport Business Park on Citicorp Drive. The capital expenditure is an initial $5 to $6 million investment with about 30 to 35 employees to start. And again, I'm just looking for a consensus to move forward the letter.
I'm in agreement. I'm good.
Okay, there's consensus.
Thank you.
Any further reports from county staff? Rob, would you like to?
Yes, sir. A couple quick notes. First of all, per the request of the commissioners in alignment with our strategic imperatives, did meet with Earl Stoner regarding the opioid epidemic and come to find out how much Earl actually and the health department has going on with that. He mentioned WCPS. WCPS will be in today, so I asked him to come in and say a few words regarding early intervention and his involvement with WCPS regarding the opioid epidemic. That is one of the strategic imperatives, as well as education, so we're striking both of those today. I'm proud to announce that. Regarding the Saturday event, met Chandler Fishhack, the new recruitment and retention coordinator for WCVFRA, a very nice young man, comes from a lineage of volunteer fire and rescue, so it was nice to meet Chandler. And finally, commissioners, I was out at a meeting on Friday when it was realized by staff that Mr. Joshua Bowman, who began employment with Washington County on February 7 of 2005, had passed away. I'd simply like to say to all the staff, and certainly the staff at Water Quality, my condolences. I understand Mr. Bowman was a very well-respected employee, a younger gentleman who had already served the county for 14 years at this stage of his life. So my regards to him and his family. Thank you.
Okay. Any other staff report? Please proceed.
I have several board appointments that I'd like to request. The Disability Advisories Committee would like to appoint, and I'll just, if it's okay with the commissioners, go through each term. There'll be several members. Randolph Samu and Troy Van
Skoy.
would be appointed to the Disability Advisory Commission for a partial one-year term through July 31st of 2020. Amanda DeStefano, Heidi Kendall, and Linda Klein would each be appointed to serve a partial two-year term on the Disability Advisory Committee through July 31st of 2021. And we have Angie Aldridge, Dave Barnhart, and Chris Detro, each to serve a full three-year term on the Disability Advisory Committee through July 31st of 2022.
Motion to accept. Second. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you.
Krista, do you schedule the first meeting for that?
Additionally, we have a Community Health Advisory Commission. This is a newly reinstated, or I'm sorry, a newly written board that's recently been reconstituted. So we're looking to appoint, and again, I'll do it by term, Kelly Llewellyn and Richard Kramer to each serve a full three-year term through July 31st of 2022. Virginia Shriver, April Bishop, and Heidi Kendall, each to serve a partial two-year term through July 31st of 2021. And I did confirm with Ms. Kendall, she's accepted appointments on both boards.
Motion to approve. Motion to approve. Second. First and second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you.
We do have three more, I'm sorry. We have Michael Reka, Robin Faree, and Cindy Powell, each to serve a partial one-year term through July 31st of 2020 on the same board.
Motion to approve. Second. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you very much. We're a little early, but next on our agenda is we'll do citizens' participation by mistake. A little early for that. Anyone here? If not, we'll come back at 10:20. Oh, Neil, didn't see you. And we're a little early, so commissioners, we may come back at 10:25 and re-ask if we see anyone else enter the chamber. Your name and address, please, sir.
Neil Becker, 10811 Wyncote Drive, Hagerstown. Good morning. It's summertime, but the school year never stops for those of us who are watching the progress of our students in our county. This afternoon, the executives from the school system are going to be here to discuss the facilities master plan. And since there's no public comment attached to that joint session, I'll just take a couple minutes to share some thoughts regarding the master plan. I hope by now you all have been able to review the documents the board has shared. They've been out. And I think there is eye-opening for you and hopefully for the county if they're watching, as they are for educators and for our students. The data shared in that master plan, the dates, the life expectancy of buildings, the replacement cycle of buildings, it should be eye-opening for all of us and every county citizen to look at buildings that potentially could be replaced after 100 to 150 years. This is a time-sensitive topic. We're looking at dates not only in 2020, but 2020, 24 to 28 and beyond. And if we don't progress as a community and we don't watch these buildings, the maintenance for the buildings, the replacement of the buildings, we are going to be steamrolled in costs, and we won't be able to best meet the needs of our students. The buildings that are warm, buildings that are plumbed with toilets that flush, AC when it's hot, they're essential to the success of our students. One of the notes that you might find interesting or may not mean much to the general public is the number of open schools. Right now there are 16 schools that are open or partially open. Some, when they were constructed, were open from end to end. And while even new construction has allowed for open space within sections of the building, studies have made it clear that the open school concept was a drastic failure. An open floor plan in a house, it's a great selling point. You can be in the kitchen, see your family, your guests, have a great time, because you can see and hear everything. When you're in a classroom, you don't want to see and hear everything from every other classroom and student. It also poses issues regarding ventilation, the HVAC issues, especially when those buildings are retrofitted with walls or partial walls, and it becomes a safety concern. And we know that the county is working with the city and the school system and state personnel regarding how to best meet the needs of our students in terms of safety. There are 31 portables around the county. They're portable because they're supposed to move. They're supposed to be temporary to address a need. Ask some of the teachers who've been teaching in portables for the majority of their careers, decades. Some of the portables have been in backyards of schools literally for 10 or 20 years. Again, far from ideal. A rainy or snowy day, kids are traveling, and we're talking elementary age children, not just high school seniors, traveling from a main building to a portable through the rain or through the snow. Again, consider the safety needs in some of our areas. If you drive by South Hagerstown High School, a building that is a portable building can easily be accessed from the roadside via the parking lot. It's essential that we pay attention to the facilities master plan. While I don't agree with every aspect of the plan, one of the arguments is we build fewer schools and we make them larger and they're more cost effective. Cost effective does not always mean better education. Less expensive doesn't guarantee better education. But the plan definitely brings to light the urgency facing the county. The alarm should be raised that the details that are outlined in that plan have to be addressed. And as the local funding agents, I just ask that you do all that you can and look at the seriousness of the issue now and plan accordingly, not just for FY 21, 22, 23, but the multi-millions of dollars that the school system requires for our students. Our youngest students from birth all the way to 21 at Marshall Street and Job Development require state-of-the-art facilities, and many of our facilities are far from state-of-the-art only due to the infrastructure and the age and the lack of replacement facing so many buildings. So with that, I'll leave it to the WCPS staff to share the details and for you to continue to work collaboratively with them. It worked for Sharpsburg, and it's working for Barbara Ingram. That collaboration is key, and we have to do whatever we can do to get the best facilities for our young people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other citizens would like to come forward? Seeing none. Proclamation presentation for the National Health Center. Do we have people here to receive it? Commissioner Wagner, would you take over? He'll meet you over by the. If we don't see anybody come in, I'm not very good. You see someone speaking?
We're going to give you a proclamation here. You got to speak in the microphone, or the ladies will yell at me. So, this is for National Health Center Week, August 4th through the 10th, 2019. There's going to be a lot of whereases here, so bear with me. You can help me read them. Whereas, for more than 50 years, community health centers have provided high-quality, affordable, comprehensive, primary, and preventive health care for everyone, regardless of income, insurance status, or health status. And whereas community health centers are America's largest primary care networks and the healthcare home for 28 million people in over 1,400 organizations and over 11,000 communities across the nation. And whereas community health centers are locally owned and operated, not-for-profit business that generates $54.6 billion in economic activity in some of the country's most economically deprived communities. And whereas community health centers are governed by patient majority boards to ensure patients are engaged in their own health care decisions, and the community health center is community-oriented and engaged. And whereas community health centers nationally employ more than 220,000 people, including physicians, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, and certified nurse midwives who work together as multidisciplinary clinical teams designed to treat the whole patient. And whereas community health centers improve health outcomes and reduce health care costs, saving $24 billion annually by helping patients manage their chronic conditions and by keeping them out of costlier health care settings like hospital and emergency rooms. And whereas Washington County has 2 health centers, Family Health Care of Hagerstown and Tri-State Community Health Center, that serves as patient-centered health care homes for approximately 8,800 Washington County residents. And whereas during National Health Center Week, we celebrate the staff, board members, patients, and others who are responsible for the continued growth and success of community health centers, both in Washington County and throughout the United States. Now, therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, Maryland, do hereby recognize National Health Center Week, August 4th through the 10th, 2019, do encourage our citizens to join in the observance. Awarded this 6th day of August, 2019, Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, Maryland. Thank you.
Congratulations. Commissioner Wagner, would you have our guests introduce themselves too? Have them introduce them.
Tell everybody what you do and what your position.
I'm Kim Murdahl. I'm the Executive Director of Family Health Care of Hagerstown. We've been providing care to Hagerstown and Washington County residents since 2003. I also want to thank the Board of Commissioners for your support. We have received ongoing funding through the Gaming Commission to help our mobile program that goes to schools throughout the area. So thank you always for your support as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Susan Walter. I'm the CEO of Tri-State Community Health Center. We have 5 sites, 2 in Cumberland and 1 here. Take care of about 19,000 patients, over 19,000 patients. And thank you all for your support for us, for family health care. We're fortunate to have 2 community health centers in 1 county. So we're able to reach out and take care of a lot of people. And we're very thankful for your support for this national campaign where we all recognize ourselves and the community recognizes us as well. Thank you very much.
Thank
Great
you.
to be here.
I'm glad I have a director.
A rose between two thorns.
I wouldn't go that far.
The thorns in the middle.
Yeah, we're gonna go up there, and all the commissioners.
Okay. Wonderful.
Sort of stand out front here. We'll get around you somewhere. You can hold your certificate right there. It'll be all good. Make everybody happy here.
Okay. Yep. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Budget presentation, Mr. Plessinger, if you're ready, take the hot seat.
Good morning. Come to present to you a proposed budget adjustment for the belt loader for the airport. And so basically what this would do, the budget adjustment would switch funds from purchasing a lease on a flail mower to purchasing a belt loader for our airline services. And the reasoning behind this is mainly due to the airport baggage loaders have needed multiple repairs this summer during the busy season. And the ground equipment was essentially bought used in 2008, and now it's really showing its age, which is mainly why we had the issues this summer. But we were able to get by, and we're almost through. So essentially what we're going to do is, while we were looking into purchasing the flail mower this year, we discovered that the equipment, the lead time on the equipment was roughly 9 months or better. So we figured that was a good time to take advantage of maybe pushing the lease into 2021 for the flail mower, and then using those funds from the flail mower for the baggage loaders that we have at the airport. And we were also quoted around the sum of $28,000 for the belt loader as well. So it matches dollar for dollar pretty much right there with the flail mower lease. With the intention that we would order the flail mower this fall, but we wouldn't take delivery or payment until fiscal year 2021, which would be July, which would allow us to be able to use that for the summer season as well for 2021. Have any
Commissioners, questions?
Just, you never mentioned the airport tugs. You said
Yeah,
airport
so-
tugs and baggage loaders are in bad, okay.
Yeah, so essentially we're not going to have enough money to go buy everything all at once. So the baggage loaders are going to take the priority here, and then we're going to try to look in for the tugs for 2021 as well. We'll figure that out in a little bit.
Motion to approve the adjustment.
There a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Next is the Welcome back. We'd like to start with our Washington County Gaming Commissioners Annual Report in fiscal year 2019. Susan Buchanan and guests, please come to the front.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Definitely Paul is going to be handing out the press release with all this year's awards listed on it as we present. As stated, I'm Susan Buchanan, Director, Office of Grant Management. Along with me today, we have Brooks McBurney, who is the Chair of the Gaming Commission.
Good morning.
I will just start off with some brief remarks, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. McBurney. I wanted to recognize the entire gaming commissions. I think we have one member here currently. Not everyone was able to attend today, but we have Brooks McBurney as stated as our chair. Brian Getz is the vice chair. David Klein, Shad Hamilton, Tony Aravanis, Kay Hoffman, and Brandy Osborne, are the other gaming commissioners. Kay Hoffman is in our audience, stated there. And I want to also, before I begin, say thank you to my staff as well. Every person in my staff pulled together for this process. As you can see, if you look at the press release, we had 100 applications come through our door, which is quite a undertaking since most of them tend to come in a couple-day period of time. So everyone worked together to bring all those applications in and get them distributed to the Gaming Commission members to allow them to be able to review them. I'll go ahead and proceed. As stated, we're here today for the Washington County Gaming Commission to present their annual report to this board. We will also announce the fiscal year 2019 funding decisions. In fiscal 2019, the Gaming Commission had available $2,044,999.55 for distribution to local charitable organizations and the Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association. This figure reflects an increase in revenues of $68,625.79 when compared to previous fiscal year. In accordance with state statute, 50% of the funding received was allocated to the Washington County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association, and the remaining has been allocated to charitable organizations in Washington County. In May of 2019, the Commission received 100 funding applications from 84 charitable organizations. The total amount of funding requested within those 100 applications was $1,947,775.52. After review, group deliberations, and public hearings, the Gaming Commission determined appropriate funding allocations based on the published and approved guidelines for distribution of gaming funds, which is consistent with the state statute governing the distribution of these funds. I want to give Mr. McBurney time to give his remarks as well, so I'll turn it over to him.
Yes, this is my fourth and last year as a member of the commission. It's been an interesting and sometimes difficult process. We have dealt with organizations that provide services from infant supplies to senior living, from very minimal organizations to million-dollar organizations. The decision process in terms of who should receive what when the requests exceed the funds by about twice can be challenging. I'd also point out that the commissioners get to review about 40 applications. Now there's only 100 that have applied, but any applications above 50,000, all of the commissioners get. So believe me, the bin that arrives is very heavy. I make sure someone else moves it. And there's about 40 applications that you get to review. We listen to all of the applicants who avail themselves of the hearing. And believe it or not, the decisions are made mostly unanimously and in good humor. So I would like to express appreciation to my fellow commissioners and also to the Gaming Commission staff who really make this all possible. Any questions?
The source of the gaming revenue, for who's not familiar with it, where does that come from?
It comes from the charitable gaming program, which is the revenue from tip jars.
Which is in how many businesses, would you say?
Oh, yes, that I'll tell you. I would say hundreds.
Commissioners, any other questions?
I just see that on a lot of your little leagues and girls softball, they all received like $1,500. And then Morgansville was $2,500.
Typically, when the Gaming Commission looks at the youth sports leagues, they try to be somewhat consistent and fair to all those organizations. The particular Morgansville League, they have a challenger league, and they're the only little league in the county that has that. That's why the little extra. Yes.
It makes going to my grandson's Clear Spring Little League games easier. Everybody got the same.
Oh, no, I just
That Challenger League, I think we just awarded a proclamation or certificate to the one young
great
man,
program.
30 years of participation.
Yes.
Commissioners, any other questions?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. It said on here on the last page, total funding requested is 1.9 million. Now and it said there's 13 places that denied application, but public safety got half of it, which is 1.02 million. So wouldn't that mean we had over 2.04 million given?
There was slightly more funds that were available on the charitable gaming portion this year because the Gaming Commission grants have 1 year to be expended for the purpose they were given. Occasionally, there's funds that come back in that you would add back. You don't divide them in half again because they were already divided in half
Okay.
originally. That's
Gotcha.
why that number's not exactly 50%.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? No motion is recommended. Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Jeff, I forgot to say something in commission report. You mind?
No, go ahead.
I was asked to, and I think this is a pretty big deal. This past weekend up in Fort Cumberland, local American Legion, Funkstown American Legion, won the state championship, Maryland State Championship. So I wanted to give a shout out to them for that. And now they're moving on to North Carolina to play in their regionals, the Mid-Atlantic regionals. And I think that starts tomorrow at 4 o'clock where they play Wilmington. Anyway, I forgot that in Commissioner's comments, sorry, but I think they should be acknowledged.
Next up is a public hearing that's scheduled for 11 a.m., so we're ahead of schedule. Did anybody come in after citizens' participation and wanted to participate? Folks, we're back, reconvened. Next is a public hearing for rural legacy area expansion. Chris Boggs, come forward, and I will open up with our statement.
Good morning.
Next on the agenda is a public hearing concerning rural legacy area expansion. The purpose of this hearing is to hear public testimony concerning the matter. The procedure is as follows. We will first have staff introduce the matter, after which the hearing will be open for public comment and testimony. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to testify. After everyone who wishes to speak has done so, the hearing will close. The commissioners may then discuss the issue and take any action that they deem appropriate, including adoption or rejection of the proposal, or they may take the issue under advisement and deliberate at a later date. Mr. Boggs, would you please introduce the matter?
Absolutely. Good morning. Each year, the Department of Planning and Zoning submits an application to the Maryland Department of Natural Resources for a grant for the Rural Legacy Program. And with that grant, DNR asks if the county has any interest in expanding its rural legacy area. After consulting with the department and staff, we decided this year would be a good year to do a expansion of the rural legacy area. So for rural legacy easements, in order to procure an easement on your property, you have to be inside the boundaries of the rural legacy area. So there are many landowners who have been interested in getting conservation easements that haven't had the ability to do so. As these recent years have shown, conservation funding is increasing. Interest in land preservation is on the rise, and there is significant agricultural, historic, scenic, and environmental land that is outside of our current rural legacy area that we would like to include in the rural legacy area. Back in January, the commissioners gave provisional approval for this expansion that I'm bringing to you today, asking that we do some public meetings and public outreach to see the thoughts of the citizens of the county on the subject, and come back for a public hearing at a later date. So today is that date. Now, you've seen a similar map to this before, the grand overall map you have there. The blue area is our existing rural legacy area, and the red, pink area is our proposed expansion. So the current rural legacy area is shade over 44,000 acres, 44,082 acres. The staff proposal adds 12,601 acres to make a total acreage of the rural legacy area of 56,683 acres. Of the proposed additional acreage, the 12,600 acres, 78% of this acreage is within the existing priority preservation area. It contains 78 historic sites. It's mostly rural zoning designation, so generally farmland and open space. It has several waterways, environmental features. There are 12 existing conservation easements in those areas, so over 12,000 plus acres. That's not a lot. And we have broken it down into 3 zones. Your next map, which is sideways on the screen, but north is to your right on the screen. Of course, north is up on your paper. We have Zone 1, that's the Manor Church area. Zone 2 is the area around Schaefer Road, Dam 4. And Zone 3 is that area south of Roarsville. The reasons staff have proposed this configuration of the rural legacy area, there are a couple reasons. First, and the main point is that the majority of this land area is priority preservation area. It's PPA. And the reason that is important, there are many reasons. First, our comprehensive plan targets the priority preservation area as the primary area for land preservation. So it makes sense to, if we're going to expand the rural legacy area, to put it over that portion of the county. Additionally, the state judges the adequacy of our county land preservation efforts, one of those judging requirements is have we preserved land within the priority preservation area? So that's another reason to put the majority of our proposed expansion in the PPA. Further, and this is a property rights issue, is that the rural legacy area and the priority preservation area have relatively almost the same restrictions on property rights, mainly that they do not allow SEGs, or solar energy generating systems. So you're talking the 20-plus acre, solar farms that people put in. And so if we keep the rural legacy area to majority priority preservation area, we don't change the ability to do that for landowners.
Chris, can I interrupt you just for a quick
Yes.
second? You said, I think we discussed it some last night, that doesn't necessarily mean that the Public Service Commission couldn't overrule and let someone put it on that, correct?
Steve.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yeah, our zoning, the restriction against using the PPA for a solar farm is in the zoning ordinance. And the Public Service Commission can preempt local zoning requirements when they allow a solar farm. So the answer is yes, they could override that.
Okay, thank you.
And could allow a solar farm in the priority preservation area.
Let's continue.
Additionally, we've run this plan by DNR, and they've given us a verbal approval of the plan, basically saying, look, we think it's a great idea. We like that you've got priority preservation area in the same areas as this expansion. Now, there's no written approval or anything. We've run it by them, and they seem to provisionally think that it is a good idea. Further, we thought that if we expanded the staff proposal any further, we would begin encroaching on urban growth areas, the town of Boonesboro and in the city of Hagerstown's growth area as well. So we wanted to hold up kind of where we were and where we'd expanded to. The last and final point is that this is we would suggest that, or recommend a motion would be to approve the staff proposal today as it is, because we have this chance to ask for an expansion every year. With every application for this grant, we can ask for the expansion. So if we were to approve the staff proposal today, and we do have public comments, you've been handed some that I brought in earlier before the meeting, and we do have the public coming to make comment on this as well. We have the opportunity to add to the area at a later date if we want to. So, to me, the recommended proposal of approving the staff proposal does not negate the ability for any of the landowners who wish to be included the opportunity in the future.
So what's the definition of a later date?
Well, each year we have the option to increase the rural legacy area if we like. We just have to include that request in the application.
If I lived right off Dam 4 Road, say like Draper Road or something, I would have gotten a letter saying that we're going to expand your rural legacy. Is there already in a PPL, correct?
Well,
Or
PPA, yeah.
PPA, yeah.
If especially the northern two zones, zone 1 and 2, those areas are 94 and 95% priority preservation area to begin with. They're only small residential, lots that aren't in the PPA. The southern portion, south of Roarsville, there's about half of it is not in the PPA, but that half is up along the ridge and covered in woods. So it's not a good spot to build a solar farm anyway.
So the recommendations that we received from Mr. Fry.
Yes.
In South County, he supports the expanded boundary.
Yes.
And then he has recommendations, west side of Elk Ridge, extended rural heritage area south of the juncture of Harper's Ferry Road, Chestnut Grove Road to the junction. How do we go about possibly looking to see if any of those could be included or?
Well, I mean, that's, again, this is up to the commissioners. If they would like to include those areas, we can go back and redraw the map to see what it would look like. I would say that one of the main reasons for our expansion is the priority preservation area, and there's hardly any of it in there. So that solar deal, although we've found out it doesn't really matter because it can be overruled anyway, but that would that could affect those landowners down there. But I mean, that's, again, you know, Mr. Fry gave a long list of reasons to put that in there, and it's definitely worth a look. And again, though, we could come back next year and add it in if we wanted to.
There's only so much money to go around too, Rural Legacy. We used all the money this past year, right?
Correct. We are almost through our grant. I have
And it was over 2 million when no,
2.3.
2.3 million. And it
Correct.
could be 1.3 or 2.8.
Well, over the past, since 97, our grant has been on average about 1 million per year. Now, we have seen slight increases the past few years, but the average has been around 1 million.
What stops us from today approving this expansion as written and not coming back before a year and redoing it with, say, Mr. Fry or anyone else's suggestions? Are we limited to a year in review,
Well,
or could we come back at any time?
The one thing that we would like to do is have it ready for the next grant application, which would have to be, we'd have to have something ready, I'd say, prior to the new year. My concern would be that if we put this off today and said we'll come back and vote for it later, we'd have to go through, for instance, if we decided to expand those roughly 2,000 acres down where Mr. Fry proposed, we would have to contact all of those landowners via letter, probably
That's why
have to
I said
have
we could
another.
approve this today and come back at a later date, not a full year.
I mean, I could see that being an option, sure.
Yeah, I'm okay with approving this today, but I like those suggestions of Mr. Fry and others.
Sure.
Can I just have,
So if we had approved this today, you have a package to present for those funding sources.
quick question.
Any other comments?
So Mr. Fry's on the packet, we've got customer request 1, 2, 3, and 4, but this, Mr. Fry's would be number 5.
It should be the first one. It's front and back.
Customer request.
Oh, you mean the map? Hold on. Yeah, that's would be.
Down along the river, down that way.
Oh, there it is. So it's sideways on your screen, but if you turn it, that's the map for his request. At least by our best guess from what he wrote us.
Its entirety?
Yeah, he would like it in its entirety on there. That general area.
What's your deadline? What do you consider deadline to get this in for funding?
Well, like I said, I'd like to have it ready for submittal by, well, at least have the area that we plan on proposing ready by the end of December. My grant application is due the second Wednesday of February every year. So that gives me January to write the grant application and submit it. Or
Just
at
a
least-
question. Why wasn't, just my curiosity, because I was, I try to stay up on it. Why didn't you consider that area right there on the board like Mr. Fry? Just curious, what made you pick the areas you picked?
If you look at that map, you see the diagonal lines going down through the area that we proposed. So you've got the red polka dot area, and then there are diagonal lines going through it.
Yep.
That contour, is that what you're?
Those are the priority preservation area. You see there are hardly any diagonal lines in Mr.
gotcha.
Fry's proposal. And again, moving now, of course, now we know that the commission can, overrule the local zoning. But at the time we drew these maps, we thought that the county would have some sort of say over zoning and solars. And with those large acre parcels down there, we thought best to stick to the PPA because if you're, even if it's the right to put a solar farm on your property, it's contentious to take even that right away from somebody.
Commissioners, what's your thoughts?
I'd motion to approve it as, and we can change it at a later date. We got a lot of new area there, and there's only so much money to go around.
And there is a lot of interest, but I think we need to hear the public comments first,
There's a
right?
motion to approve.
We have public comments, right?
Oh, excuse me, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm ahead of my.
I didn't mean to
schedule.
jump in with
Pardon
that
me, I
there,
have
but-
citizen participation first, thank you. Okay, is there any other?
No, that about sums up my presentation, unless you have further questions for me.
We're going to go to public comment, if you may. Please forgive me for jumping ahead of time. We will now open the hearing for public comment. Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward, give us your name, address, and tell us what you'd like to know. Any citizens like to come forward? Please do. Name and address, sir.
Is it all right if I sit here so I can, we
Yeah.
have Mr. Bauer's property shown on the map here, so.
Sir, please begin. Name and address.
I have the farm, it's on Benevole, Newcomer Road, both sides of the road, and my address is 8246 Deb Lane, Boonesborough. I'm here because I've owned this property for over 70 years, and my family has farmed it that long. We're, of course, farming it now. But my main reason here today is I've appraised somewhere between 100 and 200 of these ag easements over the years in Washington County, as well as Frederick County and other counties. But my property is surrounded by existing ag easements. And I just want to preserve my farm the same as these other farms that are adjacent to me. One of the other main reasons is the Beaver Creek goes down through my farm for over a half mile. And of course, that's my recreation, trout fishing in that area. But I just want to make sure that it is included and hopefully given a priority because of the Beaver Creek that I want to see preserved in that particular area, not just for ag reasons, but for recreation and other reasons too. We've, over the years, tried to preserve it as much as possible with temporary fencing and farming that is consistent with the area. Thank you.
Any other citizens that'd like to come forward? Please come forward, state your name and address, please.
My name is David Foltz, and my address is 6500 Sharpsburg Pike. My wife and I have easements on our, Mr. Baker knows about me being a pain in the neck, pushing for easements on property in Washington County. I'd like to mention two things. One is that I would encourage you to include Mr. Fry's proposal today, if you could. It's not only for the historic reasons that he states in his letter, but also the proximity to the Potomac River. There was an article in the paper that there is a natural resources, Department of Natural Resources has a new secretary. And I happen to know that she's very interested in conservation preservation. And of course, the issue is always money. The Department of Natural Resources recently announced the award of $30.9 million for projects involving water and stream restoration. The previous gentleman referred to Beaver Creek. Now, I think that there would be a great opportunity, both within the rural legacy area and other areas in the county, for us to apply for some of this money. Washington County is almost, I would say, 3/4 of it is karst land. In other words, it's underlain by limestone, which is a great aquifer. Water is going to be the big issue, coming issue in the United States and indeed in the world. Wars will be fought over water, and a lot bloodier ones than are fought over petroleum today. Washington County probably adds more water to the Potomac River and ergo the Chesapeake Bay watershed than I would say, well, if you include Frederick County, than any other counties. You have Licking Creek, the Conococheague Creek, Antietam Creek, and the Monocacy. This is a vast amount of fresh, potable water that goes into the Potomac. And I believe that if we can access these grants that are tied in with the Chesapeake, the grants are funded through the Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bays Trust Fund, the Coastal Resiliency Program, and the Environmental Protection Agency's Chesapeake Bay Program. It makes economic, political, and not only historical sense to do so, but I have my family's been in Washington County since the French and Indian War, and I love it. And I guess that's about my statement. Thank you very kindly, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Ladies.
Chris, come forward. We might have some questions.
Yeah, I have another question for Chris, just while I got him up here.
Sure.
Well, how did I don't quite understand the map with where Mr. Bowers' farm's at. I mean,
Okay.
hop that up there once.
Yeah. So he is
How did we get all that preserved land all around him, and he's sitting
Mouth.
right there in the middle?
Maryland Ag Land Preservation Foundation. We've never received at least in my time, I've never received an application from Mr. Bowers to put that in a Maryland Ag Land Preservation Program easement. So that would explain it. If those farms all around him are good enough to be in Maryland Ag Land Preservation Program easements, you'd
His
think
should-
his was too.
Yeah, and right now he's not included in the expansion either, right?
Not the staff proposal, no.
Why couldn't we just add these two in this
Yeah.
program? You'd have to go back and there's some processes. that
Well,
you-
here's the thing. We can't just, we have to add contiguous area to the rural legacy area. So we wouldn't just be bringing in Mr. Bowers and Mr. Reeder, or the Reeders who are this property right next to Mr. Bowers. We have to bring in a lot of area between them. And in the PPA, if you look at this map or Mr. Reeder's map, it ends, well, it's harder to see on Mr. Bowers, but the diagonal ends at the Antietam Creek there. So, and again, the priority preservation area is our priority area to preserve land, which is why we drew our staff map as thus. So you'd have to bring in a lot of other farms, and so our staff proposal was to end it at the Antietam Creek where the priority preservation ends. Again, you're not changing the land use.
You had to start somewhere to begin with.
Absolutely.
And when we started, there was nothing contiguous. So
When you say bring them in, does that mean you have to contact them?
Well, we would have to,
neighbors?
yes,
That's what you
we would
mean by
have to
bring-
contact all of the landowners we would have to, that would be brought into the new rural legacy area boundaries, just like we did with this proposal here. So we had 2 public meetings, and answered over 100 phone calls from landowners, mostly residential lots, but I mean, the prudent
How
thing
would
to
that
do.
work with your timeline?
That whole process took about, I'd say, 2.5 months. Because you have to, first you have to schedule, the public meetings ahead of time, maybe about a month ahead of time. And then from there, after you have your public meetings, then we have to schedule another public hearing with the commissioners. And so you need to have time to prepare for that as well. So it'd be about 2 months, 2.5. We could condense it, I suppose.
Quick question. For Mr. Bowers, that he pointed out, and we all can see on the map that his land doesn't have any of the preserved lands or any of that. Can we get him the information or the application so we can get him the exact same preserved lands that all the farms around him have?
Well, absolutely. And any landowner with more than 50 acres is free to apply for the Maryland Ag Land Preservation Foundation easement. And I can absolutely forward Mr. Bowers those documents.
So Chris, I have a question.
Sure.
Is it possible, I'm looking at customer request number 3, which I think refers to Mr. Fry's property. It looks like his property, or the property he recommends, I suppose it's not necessarily his, is contiguous to what's being proposed this year. So
Well,
could
correct.
that be included today?
Yeah, this is area that Mr. Fry wants to add to our proposal.
Can that be added today, since it's contiguous?
It's entirely up to you.
Okay.
Without a process, can be added without the
Well,
process?
that is the question, because we would probably have to notify all of the landowners that are inside that
It
area.
couldn't be added today in a formal,
Take 2 to 3
You know,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it could or not.
yeah,
I
that's
mean,
what
now
I'm
back
working- That's what I'm working on.
in January, when we brought our proposal, I believe we had the option, you had the option to propose it as is, but I think it was contingent upon following up with public meetings and an additional public hearing. So my suspicion would be if we wanted to add that, we would have to go through that same route.
If I could butt in here, we would not recommend adding this one especially because all of those property, Mr. Fry doesn't own any of those properties. Those are all individual property owners, and we would want to notify them of what we were doing and give them the option of saying yes or no. We certainly wouldn't want to include everybody without letting them know what was going on.
I have my doubts if you can go through that whole process. I don't have my doubts, but I'm skeptical if you can get it all done if we wanted to do all that by your time frames. So how about Mr. Bauer's property? Is that does depict his whole property or not?
Well, again, we would have the same issue. Now, there aren't near as many properties between his and what we've proposed, but we would still have to reach out to each individual landowner between his property and our proposed area.
How many people did not get money that requested money this past year in Rural Legacy?
I'd say about 10, maybe.
And how many got money? 10? So about 50% get
Well,
money?
for this grant, we got about 5 easements.
I'm just trying to determine, everybody's not going to get money at once money.
Absolutely not. Now, I mean, of course, if once we get an approved expansion, I will in the next grant, I will be pushing DNR to give us a sizable grant. And sometimes when you have expanded area like this, they tend to help you out that first cycle by, because the interest we have in our, and even in our staff proposal is enormous.
So the same task has to happen for Mr. Bowers as has to happen for Mr. Fry.
I mean, you'd have to pull in extra other properties. It wouldn't, to me, I mean, you want the rural legacy area to be one large contiguous area. You don't want it to have a spot out here and then nothing, and then, I mean, that's the thing. And so in order to add any of these properties that want added, you would have to have some sort of public process in which these other landowners who were not notified at our last public meeting would have to be notified.
So why couldn't we support, I'm just asking, support what you're recommending today, and the commissioners can say that these additions need to be a priority for.
Yeah, that's a good
I mean,
thought.
I think that's.
I can get behind that completely.
Let me do this, let me close the hearing, and then we still have commissioner comments. Is that okay for everyone? Is there any other public comments on this issue, anybody? Oh, please come forward. Yeah. Name and address.
I'm Kenneth Thomas. Address is 19523 Mill Point Road. I'm on the other side of the road of the boundary of the rural legacy. I got 215 acres I would like to put in it and to keep it out of development.
Mr. Thomas has 2 ag districts that are they're on the south side of Mill Point Road. I believe, well, this map is not helpful to me, it's being sideways. But if you look at your customer request number 2 map, it is, all right, on the east side, they're on the east side of Mill Point Road, both properties between Lappins and Manor Church there. So those are Mr. Thomas's properties.
You say that again, Chris?
All right, so if you're looking at your customer request number
2.
The one that's up on the board.
Yeah. Actually, look at number 1, my fault. So customer request number 1, the east side of Mill Point Road. So it'll be just southeast of the highlighted property on this page, on the east side of that road, east side of Mill Point Road, between Lappins and Manor Church roads.
So you already have a lot of, that's all ag over there.
That's ag. Those are ag districts. So those are
Yeah.
the 10-year temporary districts down there.
Right.
None of those have permanent easements on them, at least not yet.
We're at the same problem, it's not continuous.
Right.
Then if you'd have to bring bring a contiguous all the way over through Mr. No, I don't know who that is there. Who's that? Never mind. I'm on the wrong. Never. I'm good.
It's not too far off, because you have the existing rural legacy boundary, then you have the one that looks like it's south of Manor Church, and then his property.
Right.
And that one that's south is a priority preservation area.
Correct.
Are there any connecting streams or waterways to currently preserved areas where we can claim continuity contiguous through that means?
You'd
Those
probably,
means?
in that area, you'd probably just go with the boundary lines or roads. There, if you wanted to keep some sort of common sense boundary.
Again, I would have to agree with Terry said. Just draw up some maps that take in everybody's considerations for next trip around. So.
All right, is there anyone else for citizens? Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anyone else for citizens participation? Okay, I'd like to call the public hearing to close and then go to commissioner comments. The public hearing is now closed and comments from the commissioners. Mr. Baker, you want to lead off with your suggestion?
I can support the recommended motion for today, as long as we take Mr. Fry's request and the other request and make sure we somehow include them on the process and the ability to be part of the map next year.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that also. Would we like, Mr. Baker, would you like to make a motion with that or to accept with that contingency?
Motion as to what I just said, along with our recommendation.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 5-0. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Next, Washington County Community Health Advisory Commission. Krista Hart, County Clerk, you're up. And you may remain here, please, if you like.
Commissioners, upon a review of the recently approved bylaws for the Washington County Community Health Advisory Commission, I noticed that the membership consisted, it outlined a 13 individual voting member panel. And then in another section, it listed that those 13 voting members should consist of department heads to serve as non-voting members. Just to clarify and put this matter into a little bit better perspective, I am proposing to change the bylaws to read that it should be 9 voting members with, then add the additional directors as outlined in the original. 9 voting members, and they all should be voting, let's see, sorry. And then we add the additional 5 county department heads as outlined. Separate those two.
Just a quick question. From time to time, we convene as the Board of Health. with having this advisory board, do we still need to convene as the Board of Health, or does this advisory board fulfill those?
I believe we do. This is simply an advisory board. They would,
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Suggested recommendation is to approve the revisions.
Motion to approve the revisions as
A
stated.
motion, is there a second? Have a first and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you, Krista Hart. Can we make Danny DeVito wait another 10 minutes? Mr. DeVito, would you come forward with the Cascade Town Center Highfield Water Systems? Thank you.
Good morning. Dan DeVito, Director of Environmental Management, and with me I have, go ahead.
Jeremy Mose, Deputy Director of Water Quality Operations.
Andrew Eshelman, Director of Public Works.
And I was going to take a minute to introduce Jeremy as our new Deputy Director, but I think we've already accomplished that goal, so we can just move on to why the main reason that we're here. What we're asking this morning is for the permission to combine two of our water systems, the Highfield system and the Cascade Town Center system. And the reason that we are asking to do that is that the Cascade Town Center has a tremendous amount of capacity that's unused right now. And if we were able to combine both of these systems, we could provide better water at a lower cost to us, reduce our maintenance costs, and then we can also be able to set up for the potential development of the Cascade Town Center. So as the Cascade Town Center develops and the capacity and the demand for water increases there, we can service that by bringing the Cascade system back on. And just to talk a little bit more about the details, I'll ask Jeremy to pick up on that and talk a little bit more about the benefits of combining the systems.
Yes, we had multiple meetings with Maryland Department of Environment, and they fully support this effort. What we achieve of this is being a proactive approach towards regulatory compliance. Right now, the usage on the Cascade system is not high, and we have a very large reservoir there, so the water is not getting turned over. So we're taking a proactive approach to combat any potential public health concerns with this upgrade and with this connection. And also, on an operational standpoint, we're using chemical fluoride to keep everything up to a certain standard on Cascade. We'll realize the cost savings of operation hours, chemical usage, maintenance on the equipment there. So we will realize some potential savings by attempting this connection.
And just to say, we can do this by, we have a budget transfer from the Cascade operating system. Their operating budget of I think the amount's in about $13,000.
That's what we're proposing to transfer. And I'd just like to add the Fort Ritchie system is really a private system that the county owns at the moment because we're the owner of the property. And so there's a certain aspect of viewing that as a liability for people who are coming in looking at the property, because if we sold that, that system would need to be maintained by whoever the buyer is, and there's certain requirements and standards that go along with that. And so without getting into specific details, just general feedback is that's viewed kind of as a liability for anyone looking at purchasing the property, that they're not just buying the property, they would have to maintain a water system.
Just this, not that I'm complaining, but you're not doing a whole lot to make it happen for $32,000. What's that entail? What's cost $32,000?
We've got the two systems. The Cascade Town Center, as Andrew said, is a private system that's operated wholly that just services the Cascade Town Center. Highfield system services approximately 500 customers in the Highfield Cascade area. Those two systems come within, I think, right outside the gate. They're about 25, 50 feet apart. All we need to do is make a connection right there.
You're only putting a piece of pipe in.
We're putting a vault, and a piece of pipe, and a meter. Yeah, so that we can regulate and so that we know, for example, if there was gonna be if there was a leak on either system, by the meter and by the vaults and the valves that we put in, we could isolate either one so we can
So,
deal with it.
I guess, again, how does that affect any developmental abilities of Cascade?
It has
Fort
absolutely,
Ritchie.
it has no effect on that because our game plan, and we've already started doing this, our staff is being proactive, as Jeremy has said, and we've already just started to formulate a plan to when the eventual upgrade of Cascade Town Center. Cascade Town Center, that private system right now has 5 well houses and 1 stream, 2 reservoirs. One of them's 1 million gallons, the other one's 300,000 gallons. That's our problem with trying to maintain that. With right now, there's about 8,000 gallons usage. So we've got a tremendous amount of water that we have to take care of for just a little bit of usage. So we combine the 2 systems, and thankfully that when we met with MDE was very appreciative of our approach, and they approved. And what they've allowed us to do, they've allowed us to, when we make this connection, we can operate either way. We can either service Cascade from Highfield, or we could service, if we had to, we could service Highfield from Cascade.
Well, the only question I had is it doesn't create any more hurdles than what we already have.
No, sir.
So you're not gonna come back in 6 months and say, oh, because we did this, now somebody's gotta do this.
No, sir. Actually, it puts us in a better condition because
Okay.
then, as the development occurs, we could bring those 5 wells on sequentially to meet whatever demand it is.
The other thing we're looking at is on the Cascade or the Fort Ritchie property side, you had an inspection, and so we'd be looking at potentially needing to do upgrades to maintain that system anyway. So it's also a cost consideration that this $32,000 really isn't reflective of what sort of upgrades we may be mandated to do to keep those other systems
The
operational.
well houses and the reservoirs are in pretty bad shape.
Essentially what you're saying, we own both parcels. We're giving ourselves permission to do something on our parcels.
Yes, sir.
I have a question, if I could. I appreciate any effort to try and consolidate and save money where we can. That's very important. I see Highfield has about 520 customers. I just wonder, with the Cascade system, development languishes right now at the Cascade Town Center. If there are any upgrades that need to be taken on the Cascade system, would the cost of that be burdened by the Highfield users? Would we be passing that cost to maintain or fix anything at Cascade on the Highfield users? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Absolutely, it makes perfect sense. And what this approach would allow us to service Cascade Town Center as it is now. And as we gauge the development, as development happens, if a developer comes in and that development causes us to have to upgrade or bring back one of those wells or bring back one of the 2 reservoirs, the cost to upgrading those systems to meet our standards would be borne by the developer.
Okay. What if development doesn't happen as time goes on? Hopefully something happens, but if it doesn't, would we ever run in a scenario where the current Highfield system users would bear any cost to upgrade or maintain Cascade just because their systems are now connected?
No, sir.
No.
I can't imagine. Actually, it dramatically benefits. For example, I think, as you all know, that down in Sharpsburg, we just recently took down the tank to have it serviced and recoded. A Highfield tank is scheduled to go down next week. If we were, for example, to have a situation like that in the future, we would be able to just service from the Cascade side and service them. So it's to their benefit. Any costs that would incur to increase or to improve the Cascade side would not be borne by current customers, would be borne by any development that would cause our need to increase capacity.
Dan or Andrew, can you, three questions. Can you quantify the capacity on the Cascade side and the Fort Ritchie side? Can you say what those are
The
now?
capacity, our withdrawal permit on the Cascade, on the Highfield side is 100,000 gallons a day with 150,000 gallons maximum, month of maximum usage. Our 2018 daily average was about 60,000. So we have 40,000 gallons daily of capacity in the Cascade system that we're no longer using, that we're not using at the particular time. The Cascade Town Center has, as I said, 5 wells, 1 spring, 2 reservoirs, 1 million gallon and a 300,000 gallon. Our current permit is 110,000 gallons per day with 179,000. Currently, because of where we are at Cascade, we're currently using about 8,000 gallons a day, and that's primarily in the community center.
Okay, so, and the second is, if you make this connection, are you shutting down the Cascade system? Are you mothballing that, or is that staying active?
We are taking the Cascade system out of service.
Okay.
With, again, as we take it out of service, we are implementing a program so that when we have to bring it back, we have a game plan to bring it back. And MDE has approved us. We will not lose that capacity that we have in the permit for Cascade. We'll be able to maintain that, even though that system is not active. They're going to allow us to do that and keep that availability.
And that is written somewhere to protect us when that is mothballed, that we can bring it back up to be active again.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we have a couple more
Okay.
meetings with them to finalize everything, but yes, we have that in writing.
With the understanding that some of those upgrades will need to be made in that system, because that's what we're facing regardless right
Certainly.
now. So it's not without cost, and the question, I think, what you had, Commissioner Kiefer, is about who bears that cost.
And that would be our current policy, is that if a developer, by their action or by their development, causes us to have to increase any of our systems or any of our capabilities or capacities, that cost is borne by the developer.
But I think to still support development, what we've shown is there's plenty of capacity in the system for initial development to happen. And what this would be is well down the road, hopefully, after things are moving.
Right, there isn't anything, I mean, if we make this, Highfield has enough capacity to allow the start of the development at Cascade and be able to let them grow. So it's not going to be a burden in any way for any of the plans that are right now being considered. So I know there's like 36 townhouses that are being considered, and those are all, we have capacity for that. And that would not be a block for that.
Commissioners, any other questions, comments? Is there a recommended motion to accept, to make?